welcome to the studio. My name is Sasha Kadri, and I have a formidable panel of women here. So I'm just going to kick it off with a few statistics. I don't think any of you will be surprised by this, but gender diverse companies are 15% more likely to make higher financial returns. Diverse management teams lead to 19% more revenue. They're 70% more likely to capture new markets. All great, right? However, less than 7% of Fortune 500 companies have women as their CEOs, and less than a quarter of C-suites are made up of women. Why is it moving so slowly still? Why are we still having this conversation in 2023? Albie?
Well, it's obviously a complex question and it has a complex answer, but I think from my point of view and just what I've seen in our organization, I think the real challenge for us is what they refer to as the broken rung. So a lot of young women entering into careers, technology, banking, whatever it is for that matter, and they really struggle with that very first acceleration of position. So moving from level 1 to level 2, moving into management positions. And although a lot of big companies like ourselves do make enormous effort, have great programs for diversity, I don't think we're addressing the early career opportunity enough. And if I think of my own experience, having early mentorship, early sponsorship, early opportunity helps you move forward. It also breeds confidence. It also, it's visible to the entire system, let's call it that. And I think that's one of the things that we could really focus on more.
Okay, that's interesting. Maria, what's your experience?
Yeah, well, I come from Brazil. And in terms of statistics in Brazil, 60% of increase last year in terms of women in tech positions. It sounds great, but it's not, as women just are in the leading of 12% in technology positions. So it's not changing much, right? And what we see for some positions for young people, young women, like full stack, infrastructure, devs, there are 10 men to 1 woman in this type of job position. So what I think is being quite hard, because what we see is men is still in the top level in management and also in board positions. In the boardroom, if you consider women, let's say in case of Brazil, there's just 15% of these positions are occupied by women. If you get the tech girls and the board members in Brazil, we see a huge gap that we should try to fix. Right.
Okay, thank you. Nidhi, what's your experience been?
I mean, I think the glass ceiling is real, right? We all experience it. I've been in financial services for 18, 19 years now, and I'm still often the only woman in the room. It's in a room of 20, 30. On the plus side, insurance conferences, there's never a queue for the ladies, right? But it takes getting used to. It takes adjusting to being the only in the room, whatever that means. And we don't have enough role models, I think, for both on our business side a lot of the time, as well as in tech, for women to look up to and aspire to. And if you can't see it, you can't be it.
Has it not improved in the last 10 years? You're still the only woman in the room.
I would say post-pandemic, it's gone backwards. Women are leaving the organizations,
yes.
right? Leaving the industries, especially with the return to office. It's harder for women now to be flexible, to have that flexibility to adjust. I think we can probably see more women leave the organization before it stabilizes.
Anna, we were talking just before we came on stage, and you were in a quite heavily male-dominated profession, and you left that. So what was your experience like getting to pretty high level where you were at, and then what made you decide to leave that?
I think every profession I've been in is male-dominated, other than Code First Girls now, where, when we get an application from a man, we're literally all fist pumping because there's too few
Well,
men.
because that's so unusual.
Oh yeah, because of the brand, right? It attracts more women naturally. Two major experiences of that. I think the first is being in a big tech company, being in Silicon Valley, literally like being the only woman around the table and how that makes you feel.
How long ago was this?
Oh, good question. Around about 2015, 2016.
So not that long ago, right?
Not that long ago, no. It feels like a lifetime ago, though. But yeah, that is incredibly difficult to be in that situation because you have numerous things that you place on top of that. And I'm being very, very honest, right? It's not just gender. It's things like age. What if you're a young woman that's managed to make it quite quickly to those types of tables? What happens then? So there's layers of a sense of you shouldn't be there, right? And it's reinforced by the environment that you're in. And somehow you have to find a way to silence that. And that's actually incredibly difficult to do, particularly if you don't have a support ecosystem around you. And I think one thing that I've learned to do is have women at that level that I can talk to, that I can draw support from, who can say, yes, you've earned that place at the table. And as for the other male-dominated profession that I was in, I mean, again...
Which was law.
Yeah, particularly like at the barrister side of things. Again, very traditional, very, very hierarchical way of doing things, right? And none of, either whether it was big tech or whether it was law, it honestly felt like I had to find a place to almost be myself. And the way I found that was by becoming an entrepreneur.
And leaving the profession.
Leaving a profession and leaving the comfort of a giant tech company. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Nafi, I hope you can hear all of this, and it would be great to hear how you have found the situation in Senegal.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to exchange with so insightful women. So from Senegal point of view, in my position, I can say that there has been a slight progress to drive the diversity and inclusion, but still there is a long way to go. We still have the underrepresentation of women, mainly in the domain of technology, women in technology, and we see it in the enterprise also. For instance, I hear the participants. I used to be the only woman in the board for a long time, for 3 years. In my position lately, we have another woman, but I used to be the only woman out of 10 board of directors, and it's not easy to be with men and to be loud, because usually they expect the women, to not sound loud. That's the reality. Sometimes I tell them, just forget I'm a woman, I'm loud, but because you speak more loudly, but I have the right also to be loud. So it's not easy to evolve. And I hear the person who just said that she moved to entrepreneurship. I did it in the past before joining Free, because I wanted, to have this freedom, not to be squeezed. So I went to entrepreneurship to be free, but then I came back to enterprise, and still being in a very male environment. Even though there is the glass ceiling, as you mentioned, that you face barriers in terms of career advancement in the company. I feel that it comes really before in the education system. If you talk about technology, there are some domains, some fields that really are sometimes reserved to men. I think that there is a lot of work that needs to be done in education system to sensibilize women and tell them that, yes, it's not, this field is for men or women. Any women can embrace any field. So for me, there are many factors why we still are in this situation of issue with women embracing career and having position where they are decision-making, C-level position, but we also have to work in the education of women, but also in the education of men who work with these women so that they understand that we are all equal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've all raised so many interesting points. You've talked about needing early career opportunities, huge gaps still in developing countries that may be larger than it is here, for example, needing a support ecosystem. Could I ask you all, and anyone, please feel free to jump in here, what for you has been the biggest barrier? And if someone could say, I'll resolve this now, it would really change something for you, what would that be, Anna?
I think the biggest barrier is the status quo. And it is within organizations as well. I think this is a topic we're in danger of talking about too much and not actually acting. And we're not actually acting because we're so fearful of the status quo. And anybody, particularly in an organization that does act on the status quo and says, well, I want to introduce initiatives, right? I want to make tangible change that is measurable, puts a target on their back. And the question is, how much are organizations supporting those individuals to actually make a change rather than isolate and victimize those individuals? So for me, the status quo is a massive issue. That's within organizations. Entrepreneurship is a whole different story. But yeah.
I'm really interested, just to say that you don't think people get support when they put their hand up and say this has to change. Is that what size organizations are we talking about here or across the board?
We work, for example, massively in the financial services sector. So Code First Girls works with 30 banks. We work a lot in defense, but we're kind of vertical agnostic. But what I've seen is with the clients that actually subscribe to Code First Girls, to make sure they're actually developing women. They're not just consuming talent, they are developing the next generation of tech talent, right? The organizations that do that, it has to be backed by stakeholders that genuinely believe in change. Because when they bring initiatives like this to the table, they will face a lot of resistance in actually introducing it, right? So those individuals naturally think differently. They're probably naturally more likely to be a disruptor. But for me, that is something grounded in action, not simply just talking about the problem. So if we just understood that the status quo is not acceptable and we need to act, we'd be far further than we are right now.
Interesting. Albie, you were going to come in.
Well, it's interesting. We all have different experiences and reference points, and I've been very lucky in a company where diversity is really taken very seriously. Our sponsorship, for example, is not just by women in our diversity programs, it's men as well, and every man out there that has maybe a daughter will understand the importance of that. So we've been very lucky. So one of the other barriers, I think the things that don't change, is that a little bit of fear that's in the systemic in our world for women to feel comfortable, to set boundaries early, to put up their hand, to talk about their ambition. And so that is still a big issue, I think. Women still think they're going to achieve what they achieve just by working hard, and they are typically very hard workers. You want to get a lot of stuff done in the shortest space of time, you often give it to a woman. Because that's how they try and prove their self-worth, rather than just, speaking up and say, I really want this. What do I have to do to get this? So I think there is, if I could do one thing, I'd have an executive coach for every woman with potential, just to help build that inner strength that you can do this, because the lobotomy that's happened over years and years and years creates a huge amount of self-doubt with women. And that's why the early career issue is such an issue. There's self-doubt there, that they can actually break those barriers. So, if anybody's got that kind of money to give an executive coach to every young career woman, that would be awesome, just to.
And do you think, I think they mentioned it in a previous discussion as well, that this younger generation, A, are very articulate, and B, have a lot more self-belief than potentially all of us had, and, more willing to raise their hand. Do you see a difference with the new intake of grads starting, for example?
Definitely more confident, more sure about what they want from a job. So the purpose-led, purpose-driven careers. I think a lot of, most young people, actually, regardless of gender or background, want a purpose-driven job. But I think when you get to an organization, we're 140,000 people in our organization. It is a big, big pond. And suddenly all the confidence you might have had at university or in your peer groups just diminish. So you do need that sponsorship, mentorship, somebody in the organization that will believe in you and help you and create that resilience in your career. I don't think it's just going to miraculously be there in day one.
Yeah, I would just to add something. What happens sometimes when you are in the boardroom on a C-level board of directors meeting, when you are a woman, or when you are a digital or a tech girl, what happens is sometimes people just say, the men say, I don't understand what you're saying because you're so tech. So I keep wondering, are we so tech, or they don't want to listen to us because we are women? So that's the thing that happens, not just because we are women, but because we are in this different chair called tech, digital, whatever. So I think in this position is worse in terms of being heard in this C-level or on the boardroom. And what I understand is that we should move into having more representatives, women in board and C-levels, in order to be a role model for these girls that are coming. Because in some experiences, I was to hire people, professionals, and for the senior managers positions, and there's no women coming in for these positions in Brazil. No women resumes. So I was asking,
what's the barrier? What do you think the barrier is for that?
They are not getting there for leadership positions.
But they're not even trying to get there. Well, what's the barrier for that?
They were not getting there for that level of seniority.
Okay.
You know, they were stopping as analysts or just coordinators, not as senior managers. So what I realized that we should, start hiring girls from the basis, and make them understand that they could get there for the leadership level. So what women started to say when I was hiring them, 33% of my team were women, not just women for tech, but also for agribusiness, for agronomists, which is very also a traditional business in Brazil. The girls were coming at me and saying, you are really inspiring me, because I want to be like you, because in my family and in my house, I didn't hear from my family, from my dad, that I could get there. I was not, being supported to that. So I think we need to really be resilient to be in a higher position and trying to bring these girls up to these leadership positions to try to change the picture that we have nowadays.
Yeah, that's interesting. Nidhi, what's your big barrier?
So I just wanted to come back to the concept of systemic change and piggybacking a bit on what you said.
Yeah.
Systemic change needs change agents. And I've never met anyone whose KPIs include a change agency. So what tends to happen is the diversity tax kicks in. If you're someone trying to change the organization, it gets held against you when it's time for promotions, because that's 10% less time you were spending on your job, right? So until that contribution to community in the organization is a requirement for promotion, as opposed to it being held against you when it's time for promotion, you're not going to see diversity in the senior levels, right? Until it's valued, until you start hiring people for value and not for fit.
Has that been your personal experience?
Oh, absolutely.
Give us an example.
So I currently chair our tech organization's Global Diversity Council. And when I put my hand up for the job, my female manager told me, but when are you going to make up the time? Because you've got kids, you have a work-life balance.
What was your response?
I was like, I will volunteer on my own time, thank you. I'm still going to do it. So first thing we did, we got a community building goal in for the entire organization, right? So now the next step would be the community building goal. You need to be tracking time against that, because we do love tracking time. You need to be tracking time against that to be promoted for the next promotion cycle. We're not there yet. That's probably a good couple of years away. But as a start, community building is in everyone's goals for the year.
So So
Without that, people are still hiring for fit, which boggles the mind, really.
yeah, that's a very interesting point. And you both touched on the systemic problems. What is the systemic change, apart from tying it into much higher levels? What other systemic change needs to happen to change it so that we're not having this conversation in 2, 3, 5 years? Because we've had this conversation for many years and we're still having it today.
A lot of what you've said about early careers resonates, right? But what I've also found is you pipeline really good diverse talent in at the earlier career levels, and then there's nowhere to go. Because your middle management tend to be really long tenured people, right? So you pipeline them in and then they leave because the opportunities don't exist. The pathways through the organization don't exist. So one of the concepts we've struggled with is the idea of managed attrition. Like, how do you create opportunities for that growth? Because otherwise you move laterally and then you leave the organization, because there is, frankly, the broken rung, the first management role doesn't exist. And you start accelerating, I think, from there. So there are so many different aspects to it. You've got to pipeline good talent in, you need somewhere for them to go, you need to grow them, and you need to then be able to promote for value at all levels of the organization.
Anna, I'd like to get your thoughts. You left because you were frustrated and things weren't changing. What systemic change, say in your path to becoming a barrister, what would you like to see change there?
Well, that's a very controversial topic. Not least of which maybe have some benches that aren't look and sound exactly the same. That would be fantastic. But just to piggyback on the back of this point, what I would probably say is that investment piece is really important. So this concept that, all of a sudden you need talent in the organization, what I deal with, which is tech talent, right? And you just expect all these women and highly diverse candidates to be available. Only 17% of those studying computer science are women. But the expectation is just there. And I'm quite frankly more likely to see a unicorn come down my garden path. So the question remains, right, is what are you doing to invest? Like, is not this just magic pool of talent, right? We have to continuously work with companies to get them to invest in communities. So the tact we have taken is that if you put enough free tech education into communities to high potential women, right? And we discussed this, that is the career switcher, that is women typically in the penultimate year of university. What you will be able to do is surface a massive level of diverse talent right on your doorstep. That might take 6 months. They might not be there immediately, but that's okay because you are creating a pipeline for years to come. So that's the top of the funnel. That's the entry level right into tech. The next question is, why 50% of women leaving tech roles before the age of 35? And when you ask women why, it's because there's a lack of progression. There's nowhere for them to go.
That's Tinidhi's point, same dilemma.
So how do we create structured forms of education linked to career progression, particularly around technology, so that women, for example, can become more senior individual contributors or managers? And we play in that space because, quite frankly, we just do not see anybody else doing it. And it's one of the only ways women are going into organizations and then progressing up the ladder in technology at the moment.
Nafi, let's get your perspective. And sorry, I'm just trying to make sure you're included. You're very welcome to jump in whenever you want to make a point. But, in the organization where you work right now, what systemic change would you like to see if you could make one big change?
First of all, to identify what to change, to see what are the procedures, what are the policies of the company. And that's what was done, for instance, here at Free in Senegal. To see that, okay, we need to do something in the hiring process at equal competence to hire women instead of men. That's what was done. And another thing is to launch a mentorship program within the group, because you have Free Senegal, but it's part of the group with operations in other countries in Africa. So we have for all companies in Africa, a mentorship program where we mentor women and support them to get to a better position. And another point is the group also has asked every CEO to appoint a succession plan a woman. So that are the initiatives that have been done in the company to close all the gaps, to give all opportunities both to men and women at all level. And through the mentorship also, we build a solidarity with women, because let's not forget that the men are really, how do you say it, solidaire? It's solidarity with men. So we need to build also women solidarity and to mentor women. And also, I always say that go to schools. It's at the lower level of the education, not at enterprise. Go to the school, share our experience with the young girls so that they understand that they can get to a certain level in the corporate ladder. So I will just give a quick example. When I was at Ericsson, we had this type of program to go to the schools. And recently we organized a panel, and one of the girls highlighted that she has been inspired by a group of women from Ericsson who came and shared their experience. So I had this sensation of really satisfaction, saying that for 1 hour going to this school, so this girl was coming from, she get inspired by not only me, but other girls that were women that were at Ericsson.
Thank you, Nafi. I know we don't have that much time, but we do probably have about 5 minutes to take any questions from the audience. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll just carry on our conversation.
Okay, I'm white, middle-aged and English and male.
I think you should sit down right now, really.
This is my whole point. I really want to engage in this stuff. And I really want to help the women in my team. I have 35% women in my team, but they're all too junior, they haven't managed to progress through. How do I engage with this without sounding like a hypocrite?
Nidhi, do you want to?
I mean, you have to, right? So the question, to some degree, I've got a lot of junior women on my team. Where are the opportunities? Where's the growth? We need the white men in the room to help, to create the relationships, to mentor, to shape the futures. But a big question is, where are the opportunities? Where are they going to go? And what do they need that their male peers are getting organically, whether it's building the relationships that happen at the pub at 5 o'clock and not in the office, which a lot of women do not participate in for various reasons. But that's how you get ahead most of the time, is through those relationships and through that mentorship. So how do you create that environment where that's okay, where that's encouraged, where that growth is encouraged? I think that's incumbent on all of us as leaders.
I would say encourage women to be promoted as managers and leaders, because one thing that I realize is when, as woman, you are a good leader for men and women, the barriers start to fall down, because they understand, the company understands that it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, you're a good leader, and that's what matters. So promote these girls to give the opportunity, because we think different, we act different than men. And that's okay. That's why diversity are so good it's good for companies in terms of financial results. So accept that we are different, but we are complementing everything in the company as we are in the world.
Anna, I think you've got some.
I was going to say, so we work with like 130 organizations, right? And I would say 70% of my clients that actually seek Code First Girls out are men. And traditionally, the initial conversation will be, can you help me? I have to be honest, that can be very different from some of the conversations I've had with women. So don't think for a second that women can't work against other women. In fact, I've had very senior women say to me something along the lines of, well, I fought really hard to get where I am. Why should I give women or your community an opportunity to get there quicker? So Men are absolutely integral to what Code First Girls do. In fact, without them, we probably wouldn't be in existence. So be proud of who you are, but make sure that you're contributing and acting, and people will respect you for it.
I think we've got time for maybe just one quick question. Oh, gosh.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. You're all going now. The lady at the front here.
Hi, so it's incredible listening to you. So I am a woman, but I am a woman with a lot of protected characteristics. It's obvious I'm the only one in the room with hijab on. So my question to you, two questions. One is that, I mean, I have been in positions where I've been told you have kids, you can't take that job, so sorry. So how are you now in your positions of authority making sure that doesn't happen? And the other question, you mentioned that women work hard. And yes, we work hard and, the cheese keeps moving. But now, how do we, or how we are telling the other young girls to remove that doubt or come over that doubt that somebody is willing to take that chance on you and not making you walk that hard, which some of my men colleagues would never need to?
Okay, so in the interest of time, maybe you could address the question about doubt, and whoever else wants to address. Nafi, you included the question about the kids, you can't take that role. So Albie.
Well, I'll just quickly say something on the kids, because I had 2 kids. I got divorced, and I still managed to get a career thanks to many men that believed in me. So again, to your point, you are integral to the success of women. What we try to do is we've actually got a program encouraging mothers to come back to work, providing the flexibility. We believe they're highly capable, multi-skilled, empathetic, great in the workplace. So we're running a program to actually hire people back who've left the workplace to have kids, and now the kids are old enough and they can come back to work. So also mothers and leadership, quite interesting combination, very, very similar issues that you have to deal with. The doubt is what I've referred to as, I think, one of our biggest barriers. Really, I do think it's one of our biggest barriers. And I think one of the first things we can do is reach out to young women, anyone, your neighbor's daughter, whoever it is, to provide them with some level of mentorship, regardless of who you are, man, woman, doesn't matter what your background is. But the doubt is one of the biggest things. And for women like me, just as much as other women will lift you up, other women will break you down. You've said it. Absolutely true. Some men will lift you up, some men will be a barrier. I don't think the barrier is a men versus women thing. I just think it's a people thing. So we really do have to invest in mentorship and sponsorship to remove the doubt and create belief.
Nidhi, quick thought on the kids one. I don't know if you have kids, it's just to get your reaction.
I do have kids, yes. There's a big part of, I'm in a leadership position. I have a team of like 140. I block my diary from 5 to 8 o'clock every day that I'm home. That's my kid time. It's sacrosanct. You want me after 8 o'clock, I'm there. I've had to go to HR because it's been escalated on this. And the reaction's been, well, guess what? Even if you don't have kids, maybe you have your 6 p.m. martinis sacrosanct to you, and that's also okay, right? Everyone gets to make their own work-life balances, and it should not be because you have kids, right? There shouldn't be an assumption if you don't have kids, you're available all the time either. So I think we need to break some of those assumptions. Setting an example in that sense is kind of all I can do, and make sure that nobody on my team ever feels like they need to, or anyone I ever work with feels like I'm imposing unreasonable hours on them.
Listen, I know that there are probably lots of great conversations to be had, but the 4 ladies here will be in the room for another 10, 15 minutes if you want to grab them. But please join me in thanking all of our panel, and to you, Nafi, thank you for joining virtually. Thank you so much.